Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 41 of the Hot Path Show. I'm Johnny, joined in by Tobias. Welcome in, Tobias. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Got lots of work done today. How about yourself?
Dan Tobias, Dan
I
Tobias,
didn't
Dan Tobias, Dan Tobias,
Damn, that's a hard loop.
the loop thing there.
Dan Tobias.
I am the damn Tobias.
Run that back turbo. Run that back turbo. Run that back turbo.
Nice.
Anyways, I'm doing great. Happy to be here for an exciting episode of the Hot Path Show here today. So you're going to be talking about our main topic here today. So why don't you give a little preview introduction into what you're going to be sharing with us here today?
Yes. So I've almost run out of dots things to talk about since I haven't been working on dots for a while because of my consulting thing. So I actually made a talk about tooling on the Sweden Game Conference a few weeks ago or a few months ago, and I've just been making tools to fix up software things, and so I'm like, that's stuff I can show off. So I got like billion tools. Well, I'm going to show some example code on how to this is how you manipulate prefabs automatically, and then show some examples of this is how I fixed some of the stuff in a real project. So
yeah, awesome. I'm very much looking forward to it. I think, creating custom tools is a very important thing, especially as you're, building out larger and larger games. And especially, you mentioned about, manipulating prefabs and assets and things like that, where, in a real game project, you're going to have, hundreds or even thousands of these. And if you need to make even just a small modification across all of them, that could be very tedious work. So, good to have some ways you can automate it. And so, yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. So by the way, why don't you talk a little bit about the project that you've been working on lately, because it is available now in early access. Is that right?
Oh, you mean sulfur?
Oh, I mean sulfur.
Oh yeah, it's going very well now. For them, yeah, I'm still confused if I should say us or them.
You've been a part of the team for
yes,
a while.
I can say us. It's going very well. It's I think there's like 50,000 sold or something. I think was the latest tweet.
Nice.
And we have like 84% approval on reviews. And honestly, a lot of the bad is because of performance, and that's gonna get fixed very soon because of me. So I'm just hammering down the different hiccups in the profilers. Well, it's a complete overall of how the rendering is working, and that's gonna be patched soon, trademarked. I don't know when, probably like in a few weeks or so. So it's gonna be fine. But yeah, it's going super good. People are appreciating. People are making so much hacking and modding to the game that
Really?
I love. Yes, like if you know what you're doing, Unity game is kind of an open book to just decompile and go ham on it. So it's like not much you can do except for like obfuscate. But it's a single player game, so like have fun. I don't know. It's your game now, and it's crazy. Somebody hacked in. I don't know, swapped out all the character billboards because there's just 2D, right? For anime. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less.
A bunch of waifus. You're like, yep, that sounds about right for the first mod.
Yes.
That would be.
And also, actually, I gotta tell you, like, we got a post on the Reddit a week ago or something. Somebody did performance optimization through an external plugin mod, like a hack or something to optimize the game. And now I was like just running into the Reddit or to the GitHub, like, what did he do? Expecting myself to feel like stupid when I was looking at it, like, oh my god, why didn't I do that? But then it turned out it's basically what I have done. It's just harder loading, more loading, and more aggressive loading, and I already this is going to be relevant once I optimize the core problems. Then you don't need any loading, so that's why I haven't done it more. But that was like first for me, like going in and like looking through somebody's code of how they hacked what was supposed to be my job. But then like, yeah, it was a good job. It was good made by the dude, or whatever. But
Right.
when you have access to the whole game, it's like completely different problem to solve. It's way more like fundamental solving I'm doing.
Right. That's really
So
cool that there's like that big kind of modding community. So it's kind of like the Reddit, the place that most people have been kind of sharing those kind of
Reddit and
mods
the Discord. I would
Okay.
link some, but I think you just Google this
Yeah,
sulfur
I'm sure
in
it's easy
Discord,
enough
and
to
it will
find.
be
Yeah,
easy to find. Yeah, and
I think
there's
even
a
on their
few.
Steam page they have some
Yeah,
links to their Discord or something on here.
yeah.
And
I like our the early access timeline or action plan that they have made. If you scroll down a little bit on the Steam, there you go.
this here, yeah,
That's how you do an early access roadmap.
it looks very nice. Did you
Yep.
draw this?
No, I did not. Sorry about that. No, I like the first one. We're still on the first one, fixing
The
shit.
fixing shit. Yep.
Yes. So it's gonna be good. Yeah, I'm reducing the draw calls. I think from more than 10,000 to like 250.
Dang.
Yes, because of how stuff works in software, they've just thrown transparency effects onto each other. You can like make all the effects in software with Unity tools, but it just won't be performance. So they have made it that way. And then somebody who have a lot of experience coding shaders as I do can come in and like, all right, let's redo this in a way that uses everything as it should be done. So that's a part of the reason for the performance and what I've been doing.
Nice.
But that's where prefab modification tooling comes in, because modifying the prefab setup on constitution of 97 enemies manually, and all of them have intricate prefab modifications to do, and the prefab modifications are like depending on different setup within the prefab, and writing that tooling has been like absolutely critical to not like just shoving like weeks of manual labor onto the other people. So that's yeah, but yeah,
Definitely.
it's super fun. It's awesome.
On the topic of optimization, what do you think about this? Save optimization for last, because if it doesn't work, then it doesn't matter if it's fast.
This is a contentious issue. I mean, to a certain degree, yes. I mean, you can tell like my just read instruction, which has sold a little bit, but it's not successful at all compared to sulfur. The games are like mirror reflection of each other, because like just read instruction barely has any tech debt. It's like completely made properly all
It's
the way.
perfect.
No, but it's like, well, it's obviously not perfect, but technically there's like
Under the hood is perfect.
there's no real flaw in it technically that I can come up with. So but the game design, it might be lacking for some. I think it's good, but
I had fun with it.
You had fun with it, yeah. A few of my friends had fun with it. I think I just screwed up the marketing, so but you live and learn. Anyway, Sulfur had sort of the other way around, where they just have ran in 100 speed and didn't care about tech debt. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just like, there's a point where someone external comes in and fixes stuff, and it becomes very expensive because you done a few bad decisions. And often it's like decisions that you really didn't like. You sort of, oh, we can do this will hold, this will scale, and you sort of fly on the idea of like, oh, we're gonna make a great game, and you're working on monster computer or modern gaming PCs, and then you come to the end and you're like, oh crap, the game is like lagging on my latest computer, and then you're like, where did it go wrong? In that case, it's like, then it's just honestly just becomes very expensive to fix, because somebody has to put in the hours to like unscrew the situation. Then you have the game, but the question is like, can you come to that stage and take us better decisions earlier, to maybe get some consulting in to like lead you in the right direction? So I think, okay, so let's come to a conclusion about the actual answer here. I just rambling, sorry.
It's good. It's good context.
I think there's two ways. One of them is like if you actually have people who like understand the whole context of where we're going and why, and where we might go very much paint ourselves into a corner and it becomes very, very tedious to fix. And you're like, nah, screw it. It's like halfway a vertical slice or whatever. Like the early access is going to be a vertical slice. And then we just see if it works. And if we get some funding and if we get some sales, and then we can like go through everything and set it up and optimize performance and everything. But as long as you don't like, as long as what you can do, you can like to 90% just build upon it, then I think I agree. But if it's the other way around, where like you paint yourself into a corner, then you have like a billion dependencies on very, very intricate spider web of very complex asset dependency, where all of it is just not an optimized format for what you're trying to do. And you're like, okay, we need to like, write 50 new shaders and swap out and just completely render half of the game in a different way, which means we're going to modify like more than 80% of the assets to make that happen. Then no, you should try to make better decisions earlier, even that means like paying a few bucks to somebody who can answer a few questions about what's good and what's bad. Because obviously everybody can't know everything, so you can paint yourself in the corner without even realizing it.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's like you're saying, when you kind of like wait almost until the end to do any sort of optimization at all, you said you can really paint yourself into a corner because things kind of build on top of each other. So when you get to that point where you say, oh crap, this game is like not anywhere close to the performance targets we need to hit, and then you do some analysis and you see that it's like, oh, a lot of your very core systems, which like your whole game is built off of, is just not where it needs to be. And it's like you almost have to like you say, untangling that whole mess is a massive undertaking in itself. And it's like better to pay somebody maybe a little bit along the way to help with some performance consulting rather than pay for somebody for a large number of hours at the end to kind of unwind that whole thing and kind of like rebuild things up with a more performance aware mindset. I think one maybe kind of analogy of this is, a lot of times people kind of like will say, set like a New Year's resolution goal. Like, this is kind of like, my goal for the year is I want to do this and this and this. But, really kind of a better strategy to take is like, be constantly setting and analyzing goals, throughout the year. And then so it's not like, oh, I'm just going to, this one point in the year, I'm going to, make all these like crazy vast goals that you'll never hit. But instead, you can still set goals for the new year, but just make sure that you're, continually revisiting them, changing them if it, doesn't make sense. But just, continually, analyzing your goals. And again, same thing with performance. As you're going through developing out your game, it's really important to, continually do performance analysis and say, okay, yeah, if I have some, this one shader that I'm going to end up using a lot, let's kind of do some stress testing on a little bit and kind of see, kind of what the upper limits of this are. And, at that time, maybe we'll make some adjustments to it instead of, creating many variants of this shader that's not really performant that we're using kind of all over in the game.
Yeah. The that's like that's a New Year's Eve thing, a New Year's goal thing. I agree. I actually have a different concept that I used a few times, maybe 5-10 times or something, so not a whole lot. Where I say to myself at somewhere around New Year's that I say, this is not like a goal I have. I just have a theme for the year.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, and I'm going to check in on the theme, or at least I do maybe the first, half year or something at least. But like, oh, in this theme, I have a goal of eating more fruits and vegetables. Like, it doesn't mean that I should reach some specific goal. It just means that I shouldn't be mad at myself for forgetting about it, but I should think about it more often.
Right.
And maybe that's something similar where you should always like, I think actually we were talking about this earlier, me and Anton, the CEO or the marketing dude who behind Sulfur. He is looking to hire potentially some junior programmer, and was asking me a little bit about how do you evaluate. And I said, like, it's so hard to do because at the junior level you're allowed to not know much, you know. That's sort of, you can't know everything when you're a junior, so it's hard to test. But to couple with this thing, I think a curiosity and like a hunger to figure out what the hell is going on, that's sort of a thing that would help in the situation to not screw yourself over into a corner. And it's a very good thing to look for in a programmer, or to try to like boost in yourself the curiosity to like figure out what's going on. Because like when you are all of a sudden playing a game that is just you're doing it 100 miles an hour, and you don't think about anything, and you have your 15 shaders which you just threw together, and then you like on like your 40 whatever latest graphics card you get, like 35 FPS in some situation, like what's going on? And then you just pull up the profiler, and you just like, and then the rabbit hole goes, and then like a week later or a weekend later, you're like, oh, I get it now. So this, and then you have like an intricate understanding of why you ended up where you're going. And I think that sort of curiosity, like sort of that's coupled with like no, I need to stop a little bit. I need to stop, and I need to like analyze where we actually are. Like where are we? Why am I not seeing what I expect? And then have the curiosity, like I'm not going to stop until I realize what the hell is going on, and maybe I can't fix it, but at least I can like try to counter it, the curveball a little bit, and like set us in the right path, and like, okay, we'll deal with this continuously. But yeah, that went all the way into like a counter thing, but I think that's a right mindset of having like stop for a second, have the curiosity to go to the bottom of things, and like figure out. And then maybe you can't do everything perfectly, and that's fine, but you shouldn't just ignore it and like, well, it's gonna be fine, and just like we will fix it in the end. That's not gonna work. That's gonna screw you up in the end, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a fair assessment. And yeah, also I just wanted to bring this up. This is why I test on Steam Deck. That's kind of one of the primary reasons that I got a Steam Deck, is so I could kind of test things on, because if it works on a Steam Deck, it's going to work on any modern computer who's going to be trying to play your game.
Well, I'm not sure about that. And well, I mean, I get it, and I agree. But let me say, Nintendo Switch is a completely different
Oh
beast.
yeah.
Let me show you what I test on.
Well, because Nintendo Switch is like 10-year-old hardware at this
This
point.
Lenovo from 2014.
Wait,
that was a bad computer 2014 when it ran. If I have a game that I think should be running on something that I could have developed when I started at Stanlock, I'm like, I know what I developed when I worked at Stanlock in the beginning, and it was like a fairly complex game. Like, if it doesn't run on this one, I'm like, what the hell is going on? I'm missing something. So I'm just firing this one up, which the power brick for this is like a matchbox. That tells you how nothing.
Just a little tiny guy.
Yeah, it's like nothing. So yeah, Steam Deck is a good idea too, but Nintendo Switch will throw you for a loop for sure. Like three cores.
If we're playing low performance hardware, let me find my Chromebook.
Oh yeah. Well, then you have some weird Linux things to deal with also, I think, right?
Oh yeah, because it's like it's essentially an Android.
Oh device. Yeah. But, and that's part also of the problem. Like, I guess some people may have old phones lying around, but they have compatibility issues probably. But new phones, like my Asus Zenfone, this is like 10 times faster than a Switch. Like, this doesn't
so
help.
Crazy.
So you need to like understand where you're at, and like if you're playing your game and the game looks like it, well, except for the resolution is a little bit different, because like resolution has been increasing so much, and the amount of processing cores in a GPU has been steadily increasing. So you can't have the resolution of today's monitors on an old game on an old computer. That's just not gonna fly. But otherwise, if the game looks like it should be able to run on on a Xbox 360, like try it on a 10 and 15-year-old computer and see. Like, you're gonna figure out where are you doing the wrong decisions.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because we're so spoiled with such fast GPUs and CPUs.
Yeah, actually, and on that, yeah, it's really hard to do in game dev, is you have to figure out where you're bound, whether it's a CPU or GPU. Have you found this to be kind of a problem, kind of like determining where your performance bottlenecks are, if it's something on the CPU, GPU, something with the memory? Has that been a challenge for you?
So my experience is that the GPU is very rarely a problem, and that's, I think, this is my assessment. I think that's because it takes a lot of effort to do stuff on the GPU. So generally speaking, you're gonna end up doing most of the things in shaders or on like shaders that is like, even a complex shader is fairly fast. It's not going to be like a very heavy thing on a modern GPU.
Right.
But like a complex gameplay system where, like 1,000 enemies and they are looking at each other and you get a square N problem and whatever, then it's just like, then that's going to tank your CPU pretty quickly. And I think the thing is that who hasn't worked in AAA technically, I haven't come across a game where the assets and the lighting setup is just inherently super heavy. All of the games I worked on has been like where you're going barely up to 2K textures, and you're not having much real-time reflections. You're having some screen space reflections, maybe you're having some other things, but you don't have like an army of 50 artists producing high quality assets then that your GPU is going to handle in real time. And unless you have that, the GPUs are scaled to handle goddamn Tomb Raider or whatever the super AAA all the fancy shit turned on game is. That's what they are. And of course you need some custom optimization to do that, but it's still like that's what the GPUs are capable of fundamentally. But saturating your CPU is a lot easier because you can code easy code for your CPU that will just tank it immediately. It's harder.
Yeah.
It's actually hard to write GPU that will tank your GPU, a GPU code that will tank your GPU fast. It's like, it's not that easy unless you're doing compute shaders. Like normal shaders, you can just throw shit into a shader and it won't affect performance that much. So yeah, mostly GPU, mostly CPU. How about yourself? Have you have any like problems where you need to like figure out which side is the problem?
Again, I'm kind of like similar boat to you. Most of the projects that I've worked on aren't like super heavy, like taxing the GPU. I think I have ran into some situations where I was doing some kind of maybe like dot stress testing to like, see how many entities I could put on a screen, and it's like not quite hitting my CPU limits, but the GPU starts getting taxed just because of like, how many things are being rendered on the screen. But yeah, that's kind of about my experience with that.
And you don't have like 50 or at least even like 20 gigabytes of high quality textures to put into it. Like you're not even like running into VRAM saturation.
Yeah, I mean, I got a 4090 as well, so it's like I'm not anywhere. It's gonna be very difficult for me to run into those limits there.
Yeah, I have a 3770.
Yeah, 3070 is a great card. I was running that one for a long time, and it was really great for me.
Yeah, one of the graphics program at Stunlock, his name is Don. Don, I talked to him a few weeks ago. He's building his own scriptable render pipeline, like a version, like a different thing than HDRP or URP. And he's just religious. I am not gonna upgrade my 970. It should be running on that card. I'm not gonna upgrade it. And I'm like, I like it.
I respect
Maybe I
it.
should.
I respect it.
I have a 970 lying around also because a super popular car that basically everybody had that generation. I'm like thinking about pulling together an old computer, just having it, because that's like if it runs on a 970, then it's like that is good. That's good. That's enough. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely like that mentality of like it being able to like code something for, hardware that is much more primitive than, the kind of even like the normal today. But just some of the projects that I work on definitely require the extra horsepower of a really nice modern GPU, and it's really helped my development. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
you know.
Of course. A lot of comment here. Tricky. Biology. No, guys, do you know how to proper make prediction spawning when? Okay, that's very. Uh,
Yeah, check out the my netcode for entities tutorial because I'm doing some predicted spawning in there. I know there's definitely some weird things with just kind of the predictive workflow, but I think once you kind of wrap your head around some of the intricacies of it, it makes a little bit more sense there.
there's another one here. I just want to not really what I'm referring to. You have to maintain this weird balance between GPU and CPU bottlenecks. You can identify the bottleneck. It can be hard to manage it. There was the same dude who asked about.
Yeah, about the previous one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the question is, or if there's a question of just like a airing thoughts. But I would just like to add like everybody, unless you're working where you have very heavy graphical assets, you should just like if you know a way how to offload the CPU to something to the GPU, just do it. Like that, it's probably not going to go to waste. If you can do it on GPU, just do it. It's fine. If you saturate a GPU nowadays, you're doing something very, very heavy. Or very, very stupid, I guess also could be, but that's probably
Right,
heavy. Yeah.
Did you see the most recent Ace Rolla video where he kind of created some custom particle system?
Yeah, but I zoned out for the last third, I think, because I got distracted from something. I don't remember. I need to
It's kind of a
watch it
long
again.
video, but yeah, it was he was the whole time he was like trying to hit some certain performance target of some simulated number of particles, and like he was kind of getting close to some upper limit, and then he's like, "Oh, I'll just throw in a 4090," and then it was like, "Boom! All right, I'm at my performance limit."
Yes, well, but he did like a 1660 card or something before, right?
That's what it was originally on. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's perfectly reasonable to develop. I mean, I think actually the graphics card could possibly the only thing that you don't really need to have that high, because like when you're a game developer, because you need your workflow to be fast, and obviously the frame rate is like annoying if you play your game in like 25 FPS all the time. But part of me is like as long as you have a very fast CPU and a CPU and SSD, then at least you can work quickly in Unity, and then it might be a little bit choppy in the runtime, but that's your job to fix. So now I'm throwing both of us under the bus here.
Well, I was going to say that the main driving factor for the reason why I upgraded the 4090 is because I was doing it was like a Dots VR project was kind of one of the main things, and it's like it was okay on my 3070, but then when I changed to the 4090, it's like, all right, this is much better, and it's still in a build performed fine on the more mid-range hardware.
I upgraded from my 970 to the 3070 because I wanted to have better performance when I recorded my game trailer footage in VR in just read instructions. So when I had the VR thing set up, I had 3 cameras, left, right eye, and the handheld camera virtually, and all of those 3 cameras, that was too heavy for my 970 card. That just didn't fly. So all right, I'll buy a new one. But that was like 2 weeks before I think China decided to ban crypto, or something, and so the whole crypto market just fell like a fucking rock, and all the
Oh, yeah, yeah,
GPUs
yeah.
became
I think
half
you
as
mentioned that,
expensive.
yeah.
So I bought mine for twice as much. If I would have waited 1 month, I would have saved like 400 bucks or something.
Well,
You live
hard
and
to
learn.
time the market on that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. All right.
Okay. Well, yeah, we can, I guess, kind of have that as our little warm-up topic here for the day.
Yeah.
Get into some of our miscellaneous announcements, and then get into some of our other topic of discussion related to some dot stuff, as well as some cool prefab management that you're going to be sharing with us later today.
Yes.
So, yeah, first announcement, major announcement here. My game Dots Survivors is available to wishlist on Steam. Just realized I didn't have the link in the description, but I just updated that. I'll also go ahead and post it here in the chat as well. So yeah, once again, Dots Survivors, if you're not familiar with it already, it's going to be a free game that launches on Steam in December. And basically it's kind of very similar to the game Vampire Survivors. It's, a casual action game where you basically play as an astronaut fighting off hordes and hordes of hostile aliens. We have a whole bunch of different attacks and abilities, upgrades, and everything. It's a fun little game. But the important part of it is that I'm also going to be launching this alongside something on the Unity Asset Store, where it basically has all the project files, all the code, art assets, everything like that, alongside a bunch of learning resources, basically going over the project architecture of how I made everything in the game. So I'm going to have some videos, written documentation, all kinds of things alongside that. So yeah, it's going to be very, very exciting. I'm glad to have this game up on Steam here. And yeah, just cool stuff. Go wishlist Dots Survivors. Do you have something to say?
Wasn't the like this is just such a fascinating, like, complete opposite of Vampire Survivors technically, I think. Isn't Vampire Survivors made like Game Maker or something?
Gosh, what engine is it? I did know at one point. Let's do a look here. Vampire Survivors engine. I almost thought it was like a custom engine. Phaser.
Phaser. Huh.
Yeah.
I have never heard about that.
Yeah. So there it is. But yeah.
All right. Yeah.
So yeah, I think it'll, again, and of course, yeah, it's all made with dots and ECS, and I think it's just a cool showcase of what you can do in dots and ECS and all that.
Oh, but yeah, my point still stands. JavaScript.
JavaScript. Very good.
Yes. Oh my God. Oh well, let's not rant about that. Continue on.
So what else are there? Miscellaneous announcements here. So over on Humble Bundle, we have a cool little bundle going on right now by a couple friends of mine. So Andrew from Infinity PVR and Powell from Nature Manufacturer, they have a whole bunch of assets available on here. Let me just go ahead and post a link to this in the chat. Should already be in the description as well, though. But basically, it's kind of one of these pay what you want bundles. So you can actually pay just $1 and you get access to these 6 items here. So it has some bats, snake, ice world, some landscapes here. So pretty good for just $1. There's a 16 item bundle for $25, or just for another $5 for $30 total. You can get the full 27 item bundle. So again, there's a bunch of different environments, like characters. A lot of these have animations associated with them. Here's some smoke things, just different environment assets. So really cool that this Humble Bundle is here. There's, yeah, again, a lot of good stuff in here, made by some good people. So go check it out. Tobias, you picked up any Humble Bundles recently or in the past?
A long time ago. When it was, I don't know when it came out, a few years there. I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but I'm boring. I don't play much games. When I play games, I just go into Steam and like find something I bought and I never played.
Yeah,
I'm
it
kind
makes
of
sense. Yeah.
yes. I have like
After your
one of
library
those
pops up, or just yeah.
150 games where 100 of them is like opened ones.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so but yeah, I'm bundle is cool. I like it. I like the idea.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Another thing, this is hot off the press here. Our good friend Code Monkey, he just released a free dots course over on YouTube. So it's kind of the first, what is this, about 7.5 hours of his RTS tutorial. So it's available for free on YouTube. Of course, you can still purchase the full course, which has everything. Just past the kind of basics here. But again, maybe if you are someone who happens to be watching this who are still just kind of learning dots and ECS, this could be a really great resource for you to, kind of learn how to do things, set things up, and all that. And then, yeah, if you do want the full version of that, I have a link to that down in the description of this. That goes to his full paid course, which has basically all this plus even more, just kind of going into the fully featured game. And yeah, it's a really great tutorial. Or I haven't gone through the entire course, but I've gone through probably most of what's in this free course, and there's a lot of good information in there. So yeah, shout out to Code Monkey.
Have you
Go,
been
like
surprised
this
by
video.
any, or is it like, yeah, that makes sense, nice way of doing it, or it's like, oh my god, I never seen this before?
I would say most of the things, maybe there's like some things that I would do like a little bit differently, but the way that he does it is like a still perfectly valid method of doing it. It's just kind of maybe personal preference on a few things. I think I did say that I did learn the what is it, like the register blob asset thing inside the bakers that you can use. I think it's like add blob asset.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I talked
That
about
was
it
new.
with
Yeah,
you on
you
the show
talked
a
about it.
couple weeks ago. But yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, no. Overall, I think it's really good, and also his animation solution is pretty cool. I don't know if he goes into his animation solution in this particular video here, but yeah, he kind of used like basically like a flip book type method where he kind of took a bunch of different models and had them in different poses, and then basically it's just kind of like swapping out the mesh. Kind of like
it's like
over time.
stop motion almost.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, shout out to Code Monkey. I'll go ahead and post a link to that video in the chat as well there. Another random little thing that I came across, I saw Insomniac Games. They're opening up some internships for the summer of 2025 across all different disciplines, whether you're doing art stuff, design, programming, lighting, whatever. They have a whole bunch of internships available. Not sure if how many people in my audience are looking for internships right now, but if you are, I think Insomniac Games is a super cool company. Of course, the longtime engine architect of Insomniac Games, Mike Acton, he, of course, went over to Unity and kind of started Unity's data-oriented technology stack. So, he's been kind of preaching the data-oriented design principles for a very long time. And I'm sure a lot of the technology at Insomniac Games is still very much based off of data-oriented design principles. So yeah, I think that's all really cool.
Yeah, I remember in the Q&A in his famous C++ talk from
yeah.
they like asking him like when he just shits on C++ and linkers and all the stuff, and like what would you do, what do you prefer? And he's like I think he's answering like C96 or some C version for sure, or assembly. And like I wonder if you're an internship there, if you get to like, yeah, you gotta work your way up from assembly to Who
Right.
knows? That would be pretty fun to do that kind of a low level stuff on an actual AAA studio, I think.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, shout out to Insomniac Games. Are you a fan of Insomniac Games and some of the games that they've made? You know, notably Ratchet and Clank. More recently, they've kind of been doing some more Marvel games like Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I played Ratchet and Clank a little bit, but that was like a PlayStation game, right?
yep. Originally on
Yeah.
PS2, and then they had some PS3, PS4, and now PS5 versions. So yeah.
I never owned a PlayStation, so so that tells you how much. But I played some Sunset Overdrive, I think was a
Oh
game that
yeah. That
yeah,
was an Xbox One exclusive.
right, yeah. And I've looked at the Spider-Man game a bunch because it's like showed up in a few technical things, among others the fake interior thing. Yeah, that's slightly inspired from that. But the Spider-Man game, I think, has a lot of cool stuff going on that I've been just looking at to get inspiration. So
Yeah.
they are for sure not just doing old worn out stuff. They're doing new and new fun interesting technical things.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out. There's a bunch of good GDC talks on Spider-Man. I was actually at GDC that year, like basically the year after they released the original Spider-Man game, and I mean, not like the original, but like the original PS4 version, the first Insomniac one that they made. And yeah, I remember I went to like a technical talk for one of them, and I was definitely not as knowledgeable on some of the technical side of things as I am now. And I was just like blown away at like everything that they were doing, and like it was very amazing.
That's the best kind of feeling sometimes when you're like, oh my god, there's so much stuff to learn.
Oh, exactly.
Yes.
By the way, what's up, Scott? How's it going?
Oh,
Our good friend
hello.
Scott.
Nice to see you here.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I think that's basically what I have to say for the kind of miscellaneous announcements. And then yeah, once again, I just want to remind you all that you can support us over on Patreon as well as through YouTube memberships. We have some cool bonuses over there. So recently I put up a video kind of going over the code architecture that I made for this little solitaire game that I created with the Odin programming language. So definitely go check that out if you're interested. And yeah, so with that, let's get into some of our kind of topics of discussion here, where we can go ahead and talk about some dots things, and then you're going to be showing us some of your cool prefab management tools. Is that right?
Yes.
Oh yeah. So I am going to be taking over for our little cache hit Unity dots quick tip of the week here. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen briefly. And I'm going to actually have you mute because I'm going to be sharing my audio.
All right, I'll shut up.
So we'll go over here, and then actually I'll probably go to this audio controller, and I'm going to just disable the background music for now because I just kind of want to show off some of the sound effects here. So yeah, this is my little game Dots Survivors here, and actually let me change out the character because this character does not have any sound effects on it. So we'll go here. Okay, so here's our little character, and then hopefully this audio is going to be coming through. Oh, I should probably turn on my enemy spawner too. That would help things, right? Live demos,
Maybe.
everybody.
Let's go. Best. 10 out of 10.
So anyways.
You should add some pitch variation to it also.
Oh yeah, but these are just kind of the test audio assets that
It's perfect.
that I have in
Don't
there.
get me wrong, it's perfect. No, it's
Should I just tell the person that I have working on the sound effects, just say, stop what you're doing. I'll take care of it from here.
You should give it to this person and say like, okay, make them even better. They like only can work with that source material.
Yeah, just kind of use that as the base. That's
Yeah.
like kind of the audio of that game Jelly Car. Like
Oh, right.
all the sound effects were basically made by the developer's voice.
Oh, actually, Need for Speed, same. It's
Oh,
just
okay.
everything is just, even the music is made from just pitching some hums. Yeah, but amazing.
Okay, so I'm gonna mute that. Oh wait, I wonder if were you hearing yourself double?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Because remember that one time when I was like sharing a while back when I was like sharing my screen audio and you were like you could hear yourself double?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
but
why.
nothing like that.
Oh, all right. Well, good to know that that's not happening. So yeah, anyways, I just want to show you guys how I'm setting up these sound effects in this. Again, the project is all kind of like dots based. So of course we don't have any like dots equivalent for any audio effects. So just kind of wanted to show my strategy for just creating this little simple sound effects setup here. So basically just kind of have this audio controller, which is just kind of like in the main regular Unity scene, which just has this audio controller script on it, which we can open up here. And then basically I'm creating a singleton out of this, just the regular audio controller public static instance here. And then so what I'm doing is I just have the sound effects pool count. So I figure 100 is a good number. I would kind of think that, if there's ever a chance where I have, more than 100 sound effects playing at one time, that would be kind of a lot. And it would be okay if it like, starts a sound over that kind of
Reusing.
started. Yeah, exactly. So basically what I'm doing here is I just have an array of audio sources. And then in start, I just go ahead and like spawn a bunch of objects up to the sound effects pool count. So I just create a new object here and just set it as a child of the audio controller, just for kind of, clean up in the hierarchy there. And then we just add an audio source component, and then we just store a reference to that inside the array. So basically just populate this array of 100 elements of all these audio sources. And then I just have this index here. And then every time that I want to play a sound, basically I can just call on the audio controller instance here, this play SFX audio clip. And then what it does is it just gets the sound effects, the audio source at the index element in the array, just sets the clip, calls play on it, and then we of course increment it and loop it around if we have reached the end. And that's basically it. So then, when we want to actually call this, we can say, so I have this like play audio clip on spawn, for example. So this is what I'm using for the like when I'm like spawning one of the new little plasma blasts out into the world. Every time the character shoots a blast, that it has this play audio clip on spawn component there. This here is just a struct with a Unity object ref of the audio clip here. I also have this as an enableable component. And the reason for that is, basically when it spawns, then we can just call this audio controller.instance.play SFX audio clip. And then we just pass in the audio clip, and then we do a .value because we need to do basically the value of that Unity object ref, which is called value. And then I have the enabled ref RW to just disable the component, so we only play it once. So pretty simple setup. Again, just kind of anywhere within my code, I can just call this, audio controller play SFX audio clip. And then, we just get the next element in the audio sources array and just plays through that. So what do you think of that?
That looks very similar to what I did for the crawlers in gesture instructions.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So that looks. I did something where in between buffers, so I could burst the initial setting of it. But like that's not necessary unless you have a billion units to play on. So this is perfect. Yeah. This is some very similar to what I would do. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Good to know. Yeah, it was obviously super easy to implement. I mean, it's like literally just an array. You populate the array and you access what you need to and set what you need to and hit play.
This is actually a very good example of, I think we talked about this a few times, where like when should you multi-thread, how much should you optimize, like, and where does premature optimization come in? Like, if I would show the code that is done to handle the sound for all the potentially 4,000 crawlers, that's like essentially doing the same thing, but a bunch of filtering first, because it's just too many things to just crank out all the crawlers sound at one time. So you're like only getting the 16 closest or something like that. And everything is bursted because so many, and that solution is completely over engineering or too much, and takes too much time to do unless you need it. So this is what people should do. If you just, I'm going to play sound, it's a normal game, it's like a few sound playing one shot sounds here and there, and it's going to be good. We just try this, and then when your games grow, maybe like, this thing is more single threaded and not bursted, and maybe we should try to figure out a way to squeeze a little bit more units through this one. Then you should like go wide and try to see if you can burst parts of it and stuff like that. But this is main thread, easy, not a lot of code, works well, and it's going to perform just fine for most games.
Yeah. I think this will be pretty fine for my game. I haven't really stress tested it, so it'll be interesting to see, when we start getting to the end game stages, where maybe we have like a bunch of attacks that have a bunch of different sounds playing, and they're all hitting enemies, and those enemies are playing their like, I got hit sounds. So we'll see how things, we'll see if this ends up being a bottleneck or if I end up having a bottleneck somewhere else. But yeah,
I think just the fact that it's a 2D game just makes it like, so you like spatially can't really squeeze in enough things to sound for
you
it
can't
to
like
make
have
sense.
that like depth of like 10,000 characters. Yeah.
The game, I think 2D game, they are billions or something. It's like a game where you have like thousands and thousands of zombies coming in 2D, but they don't sign, all of them can't have sounds individually. They just like have like group sounds or whatever. So that's a different solution. In this case, like, yeah, in 2D you're probably not going to need to go wide or go crazy with complicated optimization. So yeah, cool.
Alrighty. Well, yeah, so that's the little quick tip of the week here. So why don't we get into the main portion of the show, where you're going to be sharing with us your cool prefab management tools.
Oh, are we already at that point?
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right. And now we're going with the Russian roulette and my screen sharing again. Let me see here. So, yeah, we'll see where we're going with this exactly. I have a few sample things to show, and then I have some code to show, and some other examples. Let's see here where we're at. All right. Well, I can just, like I said, to get back to speed. There's like a few different reasons why manually dealing with a lot of asset changes and manipulation and stuff, why that's a bad idea. Mainly it takes time, right? There's a famous XKHD. Well, what's that comic thing?
XKHD KCD, something like
something
that.
like that.
Yeah.
Yes, like a table. Like this is how long the action takes. This is how many of them you need, and this is how long time you can spend automating it before the automation coding is irrelevant or very relevant. And it's like it's if you need to do something 10,000 times, then you can spend some time automating it and it's still going to be worth it. So that's the main reason, automating it to save time. But there's also like two other nuance to it. Like you make human errors when you do it manually, and the fact that if you make a tool that manages it for you, you will find the flaws in your own assets, because you will like code it for the most generic, straightforward version of your asset, and then you have maybe 100 prefabs of this in different variations, and then you will realize when you run it, like, oh crap, there's like half of them are not configured the same way, and there's no reason to not have it as you expected, perfectly straight up, because then you can code much more streamlined code that doesn't have to have if not equals to null randomly squeezed in, because like, oh, there's a mesh renderer missing on that component because of reasons so there's several different ways. And I'm just going to show a few examples of how it can look in practice, and give some examples of how I used it to help streamline Sulfur.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I'm back at the 3 different shapes that we had last week when we realized that this could be enough episode, and I've written a little bit more things. So first of all, a trick that I found out that I like realized over the past half year to a year that I think I should really encourage is to put these tools inside scriptable objects. And that sounds maybe a little bit weird. Everybody just does maybe editor window. And for those who doesn't know, editor window is like you can make like one of these windows where you just put in your own things completely, and it's
Right.
just
You can
a
have
piece of
buttons
code.
and fields and
It
whatever,
doesn't
show
even,
images.
yeah, and it doesn't even represent like an object in your project. It's just
Right.
code that runs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I realized that often you have like your working data around whatever, like you have your set of prefabs, or you have your we're going from this format to this format sets or something, and maybe you even want to like save the data around whatever prefab conversion or manipulation you did. So like you can go back, like, oh, wait a minute, what was the old PNG texture we had used before we converted it to the new thing? And then if you do it, so you just do like excessive lists of everything that you're working with, and you save it as just normal stuff inside of a scriptable object, then the scriptable object doesn't need to be built in with the build, so it just lives as an asset to help you to keep track of your prefab manipulation during the manipulation or after, when you need to backtrack if something went wrong. So the way I do it,
Actually,
is
real
that
quick, could you just scale up your display real quick?
there was something I forgot. And now I have a billion things up here. I just realized.
A good software developer always has a billion
do like
things
this.
open.
That's
The real reason why we need a 4090 in our system.
Yes, I regularly run Sulfur into 2x at the same time because I need to compare stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so then you need a little bit of performance. Where were I?
How much RAM do you have in your system?
64, I think. Yeah, so I just by the point I bought this computer, I made some company money, and I was like, let's just squeeze all the shit into it.
That's the
that
way
was
to do
like,
it.
yeah. All right, so this was, and I just realized it has reverted me back to Visual Studio. I'm sorry for I'm gonna try to I think I forgot to like change it properly and save it after that evening. So when I woke up
Oh,
the
okay,
next
okay.
day, and I just completely forgot that I was
Yeah,
was
yeah,
working.
you
in
just
Visual
like were
Studio.
like, oh, just kind of work as normal here, and
Yeah. So we're back here. So the way I do it is that I make a scriptable object like you expect, and just like the list and stuff, where you're gonna store references to all the assets you're working with. So this is never gonna refer to anything inside of a scene. They cannot do that because it's a scriptable object, right? It lives in the project and not in a scene. And then I do this if thingy to be able to just pull in a custom editor for my prefab tools. And I usually just do the base on inspector the GUI. So whatever stuff I have hit, I have the raw access to that data, right? And then afterwards, I get into the actual like meat of the tool, and I can just put in a bunch of buttons here. And like I rarely do anything but just a list of buttons. I can like maybe space it out with like, oh, this is for this category of modifications, and this is for this and stuff. But otherwise, I'm not the kind of person who would like try to figure out, unless it's like maybe a asset store asset or something, then maybe I want to make it a little bit prettier for people to enjoy it. But otherwise
you're
it's just,
basically saying if it's just you using it, then you're fine with like having a bunch of things just kind of randomly out and
yeah,
about.
I would say if it's less than 5 people using it, then I won't care much, because I can tell everybody how it works and they can come to me and ask. If it was Stunlock, then I would put an extra day into making sure that everything works and everything is pretty nice and understandable, because that will save a lot of time from designers running to me asking why is your tool not doing what I expect. So that's the trade-off you have to make. But in this case, I'm not gonna, bother with like, indenting stuff in a different way. I'm just like writing all bold text when it's something dangerous to press, and have some pop-ups for yes and no when you're about to delete stuff. But you have
Right, because
Git.
that type of stuff, it's just kind of like you can set it super easily as you're making it anyway. So it's like it doesn't add a lot of extra time to like put something in bold font.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then also like if you're working with somewhat competent people, which honestly this has not been a problem. Everybody knows like, oh, I screwed up. I can just look into Git. I can call up Tobias, and we can just figure out where it went wrong and revert and like find our way back. And not somebody who just press the button and like commit. All right, it's converted by. And then they like break whole project. But here, so let's go through a few examples. So first we have this find prefabs with component A. So I just made some dummy components here, and I have and this is just super contrived and very small, but I'm just going to go through the code that does it. And I haven't tested all of these examples, so we're gonna do some live testing here, but I'm sure it will be fine.
It's all written by ChatGPT, completely untested, live demo.
Actually 0 lines written by ChatGPT. Woohoo!
Oh,
I don't mind copying stuff over from ChatGPT, especially when it's like nothing like specific. It's just API calls that does the thing you wanted to do, and it's not some problem solving with some complex gameplay algorithm. But in this case, I just wrote it because this is what I've been doing for half a year now. So it's like it's so in my brain. It's crazy.
It's weird we live in a world where that's a legit flex now.
Yes,
Didn't use it.
Very true. Very true. But it's like sometimes you just like it takes longer to write that question to ChatGPT than to just write it out. And this was the case in this. I'm like, I know this by heart by now.
Yeah.
So I don't need to ask. Let's see here. This thing. So when we press this thing, first of all, we have this list, and when we press it, bam, you get this prefab. We can actually do like this, so we have some extra. I usually just lock. Oh, wrong one. I usually just lock it, so I can have like one with the tool, and then it's like basically an editor window, and I don't need to care like whatever. It's inspector that lives by itself, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
never
yeah.
unlock it. So that's usually my trick to working with it. So the prefab one here has the component A, and then I have something like only on root just to like show how it works. And then when I do that, it gets the second one, and the second one, has a child with the component A.
Cool.
And that's pretty straightforward. First of all, when I'm trying to find anything, there's two ways to do it, but let me just point out a thing here. Get all assets paths is a one way. Then you just get a long list if you have a big project of all the actual paths. But this one, find assets, that's from what I know exactly the same as searching here. So if you search like prefab like that, this is exactly what this will return.
Okay.
So that
Like
string
it probably uses the same API
Yeah.
at some point. Yeah.
Exactly, and it's like material would work exactly the same, and also names of scriptable objects itself, right? Because you can search for them directly as a type, since scriptable object can only be one type on disk, while prefabs can be a billion components per prefab, so it's harder to search for that. But then you get this back, and this is GUIs. How do you pronounce that? You're the native speaker among us.
Just GUID.
GUID. Yeah. Anyway,
Global unique identifier.
Yes. You throw that through this GUID to asset path. You get the path, and then you load it. And all of this is through asset database, which is an Unity editor thing. So it will only work within this. I guess you can maybe just write it and never build it, and it might work. But in the later version of Unity, I have had troubles. If I remove this, I don't think it's going to work anymore. It's going to be like, nah, man. Even if you include it, it's just not going to compile anymore. Yeah. So you need to have those two. But that's that's a minor thing. And then we let's see here. What was I thinking? We look at this bool. So I have the access to the actual scriptable object here, converted to my type, so I can access this boolean. That's just one boolean, right? And then I take a look, and this prefab that I loaded in with the load asset at path, I can just use it like a normal game object, essentially. And if it's on the root, only on roots, then I only look on that. And if it's not, then I look on children and keep, and I just add it to the array, right? Or list. And that's just pretty straightforward way of dealing. And like this code, you can do so much complex sorting to find what you're after. But like this only makes sense when you have a big project with a lot of assets. It doesn't really do much good if you just have a few. But I've been working with, I think the biggest set is a little bit over 400 prefabs of the same type in software. And I need to diligently filter all of them with complex, like go straight deep into the hierarchy of them. And you can get all of the components underneath here and just start iterating through them and finding. And this is what's on disk, not in any scene. So it's just straight up. So far so good, pretty straightforward, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yep. One thing with this that is kind of odd, but sort of makes sense, is this. So let's take a look and do something here. So we're going through our prepared list of prefabs. We're iterating through all the children. This for each transform, you're familiar with this one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it iterates only one step down. In this case, it's not really relevant. I just wanted to iterate the children. You can actually, get components in children and use like just component here, and that will take all the children everywhere underneath. But this way, you only get the immediate children.
Makes
So we
sense.
go through the children here, and this is, like I said, a prefab asset. So what do you think will this one do now?
Active and hierarchy. I mean, I assume that if that's is enabled, right?
You think it's enable?
Do I?
Drum beat. False. And we can put all of them in. And the other one has another one. All of them are false. So that's a little quirk that this shows up. I can't remember exactly where, but a few times some types of code like Unity relies on the fact that the game object should be enabled. But if it's an asset on disk, all game objects is in hierarchy technically disabled. So it's only when you instantiate them that they actually become active in the hierarchy, because they are not in a hierarchy to begin with right now. So that's just a slight quirk that may be, good to know. I remember having.
So is that basically, will that always be false for prefabs, or
that will be false? Yes, for all game objects that is in disk, which inherently means it's a prefab.
so
Because
if you
it's
run that same active and hierarchy on an instance in a scene, that'll be true.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it's not deactivated in the hierarchy, that's
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
So if I instantiate, this one, since it's a reference to a game object in a scriptable object, cannot reference anything inside of a scene. That order doesn't work. But if I would have a reference to a instantiated prefab, if it's an instantiation, like have lost all its prefab components, prefab connections, or if it's actually the actual prefab instantiated in the scene as a prefab in the editor, it doesn't matter. If it's active, it will now show active, the exact same. Zero things. Yes, prefabs are inherently disabled. The thing is, like, I was looking for, because I remember I had an issue sometimes where I had this get components in children, which have this override include inactive, and it didn't include my stuff because I was asking a prefab about it, but I can't seem to recreate it. It was in a specific thing. I think it was like if you're looking at a prefab instance in another prefab. So if you have nested prefabs, so when you're traversing a prefab on disk, just remember they aren't part of the scene graph. Yeah, which means they're not. Here we have. Yeah, this is. Which means they're not submitted to the render graph. It's just chilling in memory, taking up space, waiting for you to do so. Yeah. It like this active in hierarchy is like inherently a non-question. Like there is no hierarchy. So there's this one is the hierarchy and it's not there. This one is there. This one is not there.
Okay.
So, but this will just the point of this thing is not that thing matters that much. It's it will be activated and work as it should be. But the point is that when you're traversing and looking for something inside of a prefab, sometimes it doesn't show up because the tools they don't think about the differences. So it's a prefab, so I need to look for the technically disabled objects. It's technically disabled because it doesn't have a meaning to be active to begin with. So that's why I had that as a slight thing. See, it's an argument for assemble and procedural object creation over direct prefab reference, so you can unload and unload. I'm not sure exactly Asset bundles will probably work the same. I'm not sure. Well, okay. I'm gonna maybe come back to that if I figure out exactly. But I just or do you understand what he means?
Oh, and then he also says asset bundles can be loaded at runtime and unloaded when done.
Oh yeah, but the activeness of them, I don't think that's memory loading into memory or not. I think direct that
versus a direct inspector reference that holds the prefab in memory indefinitely.
Yeah. But the activeness of, I think when it's not instantiated prefab, even if it's loaded or not into RAM, I think it doesn't matter. This one is more to do with if it's in the scene, being like a part of the scene.
that looks like you're getting from the API the active state of the game object in the scene hierarchy.
Yeah, and I think this trick where some subcomponents doesn't show up in get components in children unless you include inactive, that will always be true, regardless of if it's loaded by default because it's referenced by the scene, or if it's loaded through asset bundles or addressables, which is asset bundles in the behind. I thought we were talking about how we were calling in active in here, and it was pulling the reference prefabs of. No, yeah, this is just that that the game object is technically in inactive mode when it's not instantiated in the scene, and it cannot be activated until it's so just traversing the prefab as you would in normal gameplay code. Sometimes that relies on the game object being active, and when it's not in the scene, when it's just the prefab, then it will always be false. That's the point. Yeah. All right, makes sense. Let's continue. So let's add another thing.
Before you move on real quick, what would be like one of the use cases why you would like use this?
Use which one?
Like for the active and hierarchy. Like why? Like what is kind of the purpose of say this print actives?
Yeah, the perfect purpose of it was, and I couldn't recreate the problem right now, and I didn't have time to find.
Okay.
I know I ran into this in Sulfur like 3 times, where I was looking for a specific thing inside of a prefab to like figure out like, oh, is it referencing the right material or not? And the I think there was a mesh renderer didn't show up anywhere in any of my get components queries, because the component, the game object it was attached to, was inactive because it was not in the scene. And then you just like your calling to find the mesh render needs to include inactive objects in that case to find it. But I think that was like nested prefabs that would actually because I couldn't recreate it. I just know that in this case we can see that inactive in hierarchy is always false, and that's relevant in some of the Unity's API. In some APIs that you still can run on the prefabs on disk. And then you need to know like, oh, right, it's inactive, so I need to look for the active ones also, so I get the actual results I'm looking for. Because in that case, obviously, it's not relevant if it's active or not. You just need to find the thing. Then I want. All right, let's see here. I'm gonna continue with the next one. I have a few other examples. Very straightforward thing here. Set value in component, and now we can also like I can just point out that you can do a bunch of filtering. If I run this now, I will end up having an exception because my list of prefabs 1, 2, 3, all of them does not contain the component B. So if I run it now, I will get like doesn't find that. But if we just take, I don't know, which one did I put the component B on? Number 3. So if I just remove them, and then I can have number 3 here, and I press that one, and I look at it, and you have 69 here. So that's just like, if you want to, this is obviously, to some degree, you can sometimes just, mark all the prefabs you want and just select and like put in the value manually. But if it's deep inside of a nested, and it maybe doesn't even like conform to the same hierarchy in all of the, you just like, on this component everywhere, I just need to set this reference to this, or swap out this material if it's the wrong material, whatever. And you're like, and sometimes maybe you can, do some GUID trickery where you swap out the asset without, but sometimes you just need to swap out a thing inside of a prefab deep inside the nesting thing, and you like, everywhere where this shows up, just swap it to this thing, or increment it by 5 or whatever. Then the only thing you need to do is, just get the prefab, find the component you're looking for, set the value, and then do this. So I am honestly not sure, because the Unity documentation is a little bit iffy on exactly how this comes into order sometimes. But this is the consistent way I've been doing it. That's not super unperformant, because changing a lot of assets can sometimes introduce a lot of reloading. But set 30 and save asset if 30. That means that you're just basically just like pushing out make sure it's saved on disk, because that's a problem that you can have a lot of times, where you like, you set something on a prefab, and it looks like it's updated, but it doesn't even show up in Git. And that means like it's just set somewhere in some RAM somewhere. And as soon as you're like deselecting it in Unity, it's just like, well, okay, never mind. It wasn't the value anyway.
Yeah, I was running into that exact same thing the other day. I forgot to have some of these calls in there, and I was doing some like custom editor tooling, and things were just kind of like randomly reverting. I'm like, what the heck? Oh yeah, right.
Yeah. And foreshadowing, how do you make a lot of this at the same time without clogging up the editor? Have you thought about that?
Basically doing
bulk modification.
I don't know if I've
run into that problem. I've reduced. I'm going to show you exactly what it is. But I in software, I reduced a specific thing from 5 minutes to like 5 seconds, where the editor just like, okay, I can do this like in a few seconds if you do it in the right order.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to show that. Oh yeah, we're already here, I guess. So let's take another one. Add a component. This is the one we looked at last week, slightly modified. So here we have a component, a prefab, and we are changing a value onto a component that is already on the prefab. But what if we want to structurally change the prefab? You can't do like component game object add component like that or whatever. That will not work, because that will just like, what does that even mean? Like Unity doesn't really understand how that's supposed to come together, because this is not in read only, but it's like it's not in the right frame to be able to modify a prefab. This is also like slightly undocumented behavior, like exactly what's happening around, and but it doesn't work like it should. Some modification to prefabs that's not just values can sometimes work if you just do it straight up. But the best thing, if you're going to do some heavy modification like remove, add, or like move around children, then you should do this one, load prefab content. So this is exactly what's happening when you double click a prefab in Unity. So when you do this, and you get into this is the mode you're in.
Okay.
You're like loaded prefab content, right? And that means like whatever you do, we will automatically dirty everything, and as long as you save, we're going to save it, and you get, the do you want to save if you exit without saving and all of that. But inherently, you're actually, setting the data to you have full write access to the prefab. So that's what you do, and you do that through actually getting, if you have just the object reference, you need to get the path, get asset path, and then you need to squeeze in the path into this load as prefab content. But then when you have this, and this is, you can still do things like this, just like check if you have.
And that just returns a game object type.
This one, oh yeah, exactly. So this prefab utility, oh boy, this is a complicated one.
A lot of things on there,
this is like a full
things,
season of Hot Pass show to go through this. Yes. So but yeah, that's just a straight up game object, and it will always return just the game object. And then we have this. So this is the thing that I did last time. We can see here, we can just run it once. Which one did have? There we go. And we have that one. Oh, I didn't reload it, maybe. Let's see here. And we press the new button. Add component to and there we go. So prefab number 1, who has the component A on, got a new cube at a specific offset, 2, 1, 0 to 1. And if we look at the code, a cube set as a parent, just as you expect, and then you have some local position. And then, importantly, save as prefab assets. You need to like overwrite the old one with the open one and then the same path, and then unload it. Make sense?
Totally.
And if you do this to, let's say you have like a intricate interconnectedness and with nested stuff all the way, and a bunch of prefabs just all over the place, nested, and then this thing is a godsend.
Okay.
That's what's actually happening when you're bulk selecting a bunch of prefabs in Unity, and you're like, oh, let's change the boolean on the root component, and it's just and it's done. And you do it in like a few seconds for a bunch of components often. If you would do that one by one, you have like this significant loading time for each one of them.
Basically got to save and load for each one.
Yeah, and
sequence.
Imagine just doing that by script, but each one at a time. That's what's happening if you do it just straight up like that. So when you do this, then you just like say to Unity, basically, all right, I'm going to do a bunch of changes. Just don't, propagate everything through, because it doesn't matter yet. I will change a bunch of things, and then when I'm done, I say, all right, I'm done. And then Unity will like, all right, let's figure out what things we need to reconnect and make sure it's, properly, and maybe, generate some stuff for the library folder or something like that, some artifacts. So that's and I didn't know about this until I worked on software, and now I'm using it all the time.
That's really helpful.
Very helpful. Let's see here. I will actually move this example up and use this, because there's one catch to this. So let's crash the Unity editor, shall we? Let's see here. Game object error null and dot is static equals to false, like whatever. This is, pretty obviously gonna make an exception, right? So what's gonna happen? Do you have any predictions?
So let's see. If error is static, is false.
This is just no. This is just gonna throw an exception, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So so what's gonna happen when we're inside of this?
Oh, because does it never reach that stop asset editing?
Yeah.
So you just like, that's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh man, I've been restarting the editor because of this. So which one was it? It was the add component to, okay. So, oh yeah, we need to just make sure this one is back to normal, I think. And then we press it. Wait, what? Oh yeah, there we go.
So is it just going to be importing assets forever?
And it's just, yeah, I now, oh, maybe it actually disappeared now. Maybe this is something they upgraded a little bit in this later version of Unity.
6.
It can be, or you know what? It can also be that. Let me do one thing here quickly. Let me just take some random.
The classic. This shouldn't work, but it does.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure it's just to do with. I'm just gonna take some random sprites and put into this asset folder here. And I think if I put some icon here, yeah, I can't even press Control R properly. No, I can't reload anymore. It's like the asset database is like, nah, it's time for me to go to bed.
Weird, but like basically the editor is still like you can still click around like you would never know. You're just like it's just not reloading. What?
Yes. So this is like a very odd state, which I didn't figure out why it was.
Yeah, that could be
until, like,
super
the third
misleading
time.
because you don't get any errors, and it's just like
it's just like I was importing stuff, and now, like from the frame of Unity, like I was importing stuff, and now I don't know what I'm doing.
Who am I?
Yeah. So the only way to fix this, in my experience, is to just
turn it off and turn it back on.
Yeah. So that's gotcha, right?
Yeah.
So the way, and now you got the icon here. So for icon, to just import. You can delete that again. So the way to fix that is, what do you think?
Would you have to like catch the exception or something?
Yeah, pretty straightforward. You just catch the whole thing inside of these guys, and that will be basically it. So we can remove that thing, and we can just add this. You know what? Actually, I go back to the original because that's basically later. So that's what's going on. So we modify things, and because of these ones, going to go very fast, but you need to not crash in the middle of it. Any exception, and you will just like bork your Unity editor until you restart it, whatever you do. Like I've actually like tried to like find a way to like kickstart the asset database again, but it just doesn't like it doesn't work. It just gives up. You can't call this one again, and it will.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, can you hit some like hotkey, like, oh, press F6, and it just calls asset database dot stop asset editing.
I don't want to maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something to do here. But I am pretty sure I tried to call this. There was a while ago I did that last time. I tried to like find a way to call this just explicitly after a crash and get it going again, but nothing worked. And it was just gone forever, and I had to restart it. But it's not a big deal. It's just you just gotta try catch it, and that's fine. All right. Let's see here. Next. Unless you had any questions.
Well, so you said this load prefab contents, that basically you say takes that prefab like almost into that editing state, like you click it in the editor, and then I'm guessing the unload prefab contents essentially does the opposite of that. It basically just kind of closes that.
Yeah, exactly.
But then you have to call the save step before.
Yeah, that's the save button. That's basically the save button,
so
because
it's basically clicking save, and then that unload step is going back to like
going out of the prefab edit mode.
Cool.
Right. Yeah. Which makes sense, right?
Yeah. Open it up for editing, do your editing, save it, close it for editing.
Yeah. And I haven't actually run into any oddities with this thing. It works pretty straightforward, so I'm very happy with that. Like if I just do like we can just, for the fun of it, this is software code. If we just go like open content, unload, whatever. This is the amount of times this is just fix K patches, fix weapon props, push, all of these are just loading in. Fix weapon props, is something I'm running ahead of myself a little bit, but here I have a bunch of game objects and I open some prefab. I found if it ends with prop, that's the kind of stuff that you sort of sort on.
If there's any kind of structure that your team has kind of
exactly
implemented for managing assets.
This is actually kind of good. I'm gonna go back to the other examples, but I can show off a little bit of this in practice, how it looks.
Yeah.
So target the actual open prefab, and then I get all the decouple on death components inside. If they end up prop, it's like no straightforward things that I just need to keep track of. Otherwise, I'm looking prefab utility is part of a prefab instance, is in prefab object, another list I have, and otherwise, so this was where I needed to reset everything to 0 out. And remove all clone because I was annoyed at the clone word everywhere.
Yeah.
So I removed that. And then I also destroyed all non-transforms that was underneath this. So all components that is not the transform, which basically means I'm keeping the structure of, because the transform is the only thing that needs to be on a game object for it to be valid, right? So I just removed everything that wasn't a transform, and that made it just clear out all components underneath. So I only have the actual game objects with their positioning left. Right? I don't remember exactly why I did this, but it was very relevant probably. I instantiate a new, right. So yeah, we don't have to go into the details, but you can see I'm doing a bunch of processing, and then also if you want to delete stuff, then you have like the delete that everybody destroy that everybody knows about, pretty straightforward thing. It takes a game object and then destroys it. And this one, hooks properly into on destroy and all of that, and waits basically a frame so you can handle. So Unity can internally handle everything properly if it's connected to other systems. If you want to be a little bit more crazy, you do destroy immediately, which just throw it out of memory immediately. And this is relevant to when you're doing editor, because you don't have an update loop with a bunch of things going on. You can just destroy the thing, and if it's actually on disk, then you need to call the destroy immediately with allow destroying assets. So that means then you will destroy that component, game object, or whatever on the prefab on disk, where you need to load the thing into memory like that first. So that's the type of structural change, right? Make sense? Definitely. Maybe I'm going a little bit fast here, but I think
it's a good overview of how you can kind of use these things in more of a practical sense.
Yeah, and then I'm saving, and so we can. I can see if I can actually find. Now I'm hide this. If I can find some a bit more straightforward example of how I use this. Remove mesh renderers node. That's very easy, probably. My game objects. I load in the prefab. Include disabled. I find all the mesh renderers, and then so I here I have some settings if I should include stuff that is inside of nested prefabs. So that means that if I have this set to false, that means I should not include mesh filters that is inside of prefabs, inside my prefab, so nested prefabs. And then I ask prefab utility is part of prefab instance, and I ask about this specific game object, like is this game object inside of this prefab part of another prefab? Then we should maybe ignore it. Make sense? Is it very hard to follow? Maybe I'm not sure.
No, I think you're doing good. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then oh yeah. So this code was supposed to is cleaning out every mesh filter that doesn't have a corresponding renderer. If you don't have a mesh renderer or any render of anything, why would you have a mesh filter on it? That was the problem I was having, because I had a bunch of mesh filters everywhere. They're not rendering anything. Let's just remove the mesh filter, you know? So that was basically it. So I made a custom node in the graph I'm using for this, where it just finds all the mesh filters that doesn't have a renderer.
Cool.
And then I have, an only print thing, so I could print out a log of everything that will happen.
Things changed and
yeah.
Oh yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like before you actually run the destructive steps of changing all your assets, just like say this is everything that it's going to change, and then you can kind of manually review that yourself and make sure you're like, okay, yeah, I'm ready to make all these changes.
Exactly. Because that's like, that's one of those things where you maybe have 100 assets, and you're like, maybe there's like 10, 50, something between that on every of my prefab. And then you do that, and then you see 999,999 in the log, and you're like, I don't know if I want to press the commit button yet.
Right,
what's going on here?
Or there's always some weird edge case or something like that. Yeah, this is something I had to do in the IT world a lot when I would like, make some script to, manage, like do some like manipulation on like a large amount of files. It's like, okay, before I like screw everything up, even though I already have everything saved, like let me just, make sure that this isn't gonna like cause me another headache.
Yeah, exactly. So and then when I do not only print, then I just destroy immediately this thing, and I save it. So see here that if I am only printing, then I don't save anything. Then I just need to unload it. So that's a slight thing. 3 for 3. Let's find one more fun thing. Let's see something here. Remove specific. Well, no, actually, we already basically seen that kind of thing. Swap sprite renders to meshes. So here, going through game objects, opening everything up, finding every sprite renderer, and here I already have a mapping that maps from a texture used in a sprite renderer to a specific mesh and a material that will represent the same thing. So I don't need to use the sprite renderer. Sprite renderer is a weird thing. I don't understand what it's doing, and the source code is closed. So I'm trying to get rid of it because it's performance-wise is weird. So this is part of it. I'm not using this particularly much, but that was one of the things that I was doing a little bit. So it's opening up, finding all of them, seeing do I have a replacement for this sprite renderer. Then I save over the game object, destroy immediately. This should be true here. Probably for some reason. Oh, well, I don't have a good, maybe, well, who cares? You see the point. It probably works, but maybe it was some weird bug that I didn't have allowed to destroy assets true. I destroy the thing, and then I add my filter and my renderer, and I put in the appropriate mesh and material, and then I change it. So this just like whoop swaps it over. So then the big work in this was doing that thing that could where I could find replacements for everything.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
that's really smart.
Yeah. So and you can see it's just a billion of this. And and some of them are like, you know, very, very complex to like find exactly what you're going on. This one is, you know, saving out Pro Builder meshes to disk, destroy Pro Builder mesh and dependencies, Baker utilities, you know, it's just going crazy, deleting everything that's not needed. Yeah. All right. Let's quickly check back to the sample code, and then I think we're pretty much done.
Cool.
We have one more thing. Yeah. Okay. Find prefabs with override to component C. This is one of those I didn't set up properly, I think. So there's no like way to look, and it doesn't really work. I see now. I've written this in a little bit of a hurry, but I explained it. It's not that complicated. So you know, when you have this thing, so if we take prefab 1 and we just pull in prefab 2 here, and then we change this one here, and we do like this. These guys are prefab overrides, right? Probably most people know what they are and how they work. When you nest a prefab inside of another, you can keep all the changes you want, and then you can go in and you can change the changes, and it just becomes an override in this version of the prefab inside of this prefab. And maybe you have like, damn it, I have a bunch of overrides, and you can override to the same variable, and that just makes it do the same thing but not follow the original prefab values. So you lose the nice thing with prefab, where you can change it in one place and it propagates.
Right.
Yeah,
so you're saying basically like if you changed a value but then changed it back to what the actual default is, it still shows as an override. But then if you were to go on the base object, change that because it thinks that that object is now overridden, it doesn't get that new value.
Yeah, and there's a good reason for being able to override to the same value, because maybe you have like, this should not change. The original prefab maybe for some reason might be changing in this regard.
Yeah,
but
that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, but in this instance, this should completely be like this, period. Then you do the override. But sometimes it's just like sloppily made and there's a bunch of overrides. And then you're like, oh, god damn it, I can't change the original prefab because I have this prefab instantiated in 50 other prefabs, and all of them have stupid overrides that doesn't make sense, right? Then you can use, once again, prefab utility. Get property modification. This one, let's see here. Actually, this one is a little bit weird. I'm not using this one as much because it doesn't do everything I want to. But basically, you can use this to find if you just ask, like, put in an object into this, it will return you a list, and this list is like, you can see here, it's the target, what it's actually overrides, the property path value, and object reference. And that's, you know, if it's a reference, if it overrides with a reference to another value, that means, you know, like an override from the value 50 to the value 100 can be stored in a string value, but an override from this this object to this object, that needs to be a reference. Yeah, this is basically to be able to sort through and like find which stuff has overrides, which doesn't have. And this is a deep thing. This is just it's basically not possible to go through this in detail because you just need to explore it. It's just so prefabs in Unity with the override system and nesting system is very, very deep and complicated. And as I've been exploring it with so far, it's honestly for a good reason. It's just really complicated because there's so many versions of everything and they all need to exist. So I'm just like pointing the way a little bit, like this is where you start it if you want to figure out and like manipulate prefab overrides.
I'm sure it is quite complex under the hood because do you remember at like, I think it was at Unite a couple years ago when they like first announced that they were going to have nested prefabs, and that was like a whole big thing that the
Yeah,
crowd went
yeah.
crazy. That's probably like the most excited that anyone's been for any Unity feature that I can remember.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember that too. Yeah. And I remember I was like, why didn't they have this from the beginning? And
Right.
like, it's not like I didn't understand that it was a complicated thing, but now that I've gone deep into it, like a very, very good indicator to how complex it is like these guys. Get corresponding object from original source. Get corresponding object from source. Get corresponding object from source at path. What's the difference? I don't remember. There is a difference, and it's good to know, but I don't remember. It's just too much. And I remember using these guys and like figuring out why where they actually made sense. Like, yeah, you would need to distinguish between these three. That is a good point. But I never remember exactly what they do. I need to look up in the documentation every time because it's just endless of variations. And you can see also like is part of any prefab, is part of immutable prefab, model prefab, non-asset prefab instance. It just never ends with different variations on how you can structure prefabs. So let's just end this with this one. Get a little taste. So imagine you have this prefab C, and you have a title text, and you want to like, I want to rewrite this title text, and it's like nested in 50 different places or 500 different places. And I want to just overwrite it, or with some verb, like, put a capital T in front of everything or something. Or no, I want to remove all overrides. That was the point. So open up as normal, find all the components C in the prefab, go through them, and then you can actually create a serialized object from it. So this is like creates the serialized representation of it. It's like the text form almost. For those who have worked with serialized objects, they're a little bit of a weirdness. They can like hold the data for a property in text form, and they are the one you use to display fields in the inspector. But in this case, you just get this serialized object that represent this prefab in sort of text on disk, and you find the title text finding property. This is the literal name of the prefab. And then you can go prefab utility, revert property override, automate. And then you can like tag it if it's user action, or I don't know exactly why that matters. But
does that maybe have something to do with like the undo writing?
Yeah,
or
I
something?
can probably. I've never really looked into it. I just have used the automated action because it is an automated action, and I haven't built any tools.
Oh yeah,
for
it says and prevent using the setting. Hover over it again.
What?
Hover over the automated action again.
Oh, it says
use this setting to prevent a method from showing any dialog boxes to the user, and to prevent it recording to the undo history.
Maybe I read that somewhere, but yeah, that makes sense. That makes total sense. But yeah, there wasn't really deeper meaning than like there is ways. This is tricky. This is something that I suggest discussing with the ChatGPT if you're confused. This is one of those things where I've had long discussions with ChatGPT on how to figure out something, how to find it. But you can do all of these manipulations automatically if you have a big bulk thing that you need to get done. You can like it's completely possible to do all of this because most of the tools you're using in the editor to do this manually is this behind. It's just a graphic user face on top of this API mostly. So this would revert the override of title text in any nested prefab containing component C. And for good measure, the try catch, because I may be doing a bunch of them and I don't want to get stuck in limbo. All right, that was a crazy journey into the world of asset manipulation in Unity.
Yeah, and I'm sure this is still just kind of scratching the surface, like especially as you say, like with the prefab utility. I mean, you just pop that class open, and there's so many different things in there.
Yeah.
Um,
This thing. This is one of the graph. This is graph tool, Xgraph, Xnode it's called, but I
okay.
put a bunch of stuff on top of it, but that's for another day. But this is, find prefabs, finding the prefabs, filtering the prefabs, remove material and submeshes, ref material, working, and then like all of these are just like sets that I work with, so I can keep track of what I'm doing. Filter prefab by material, save mesh and remove pro builder, remove renderers. There's just a billion of these, and then like, oh, is everything looking fine? Let's press instantiate set. Let's go go out and like, oh, this is all of the shanty chunks in one of the maps for in Sulfur. So now I can look at them and just like take a gauge, like, have I screwed something up, or do they look kind of fair? Yeah, they look kind of fair. All right. Fair enough.
Looks
It's
like some buildings. Yep, yep.
yeah.
They're not all pink materials.
Yeah, exactly. That's sort of the workflow. But yeah, I have a so many complicated. You can see here prefab baking. Let's see, do like this. All of this. Runtime, processing, filtering. All of those are nodes I've written myself to be able to manage their assets. This is crazy. I haven't looked at this.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. Remove null, remove mesh. Yeah, you can see I'm just like, oh shit, I need to fix this, and then I write a node that does that, and then I do it.
Yeah, I mean that is a real world example of how much of a lifesaver these tools are. Because again, you say you're working with hundreds and hundreds of prefabs and assets, and again, you're noticing some issues with these things, and it's like, that's actually kind of goes back to what we're talking about at the beginning of this. Not saving all your optimizations to the end because again, you've kind of built off your whole project off some of these core fundamentals, which may not necessarily be the best. And then now you're having to come in and basically create all these tools to, get everything to conform to like good quality standards and all.
Yeah, exactly. And the big thing with Sulfur, just to put things in perspective, is like, and this is slightly nuanced. So not to blame their initial decisions too much here, but it's a game built completely basically on sprite renders, and that's not obvious to me before that was a bad idea. I would probably have gone into the performance earlier and like, okay, we should need to change this, but that was not obvious to them, and that makes sense. And now like, oh, how do we like remove all sprite renders basically out of a game without it looking any different? That
Right.
is an engineering problem, I can tell you.
Because it's not realistically when you're at the point where you have hundreds of assets to manually go through them and make sure that you're doing everything the exact same way. So having automated tools is perfect for that.
And it's like also like, oh, these things needs to be baked together. If I create individual assets of all of this, we're gonna have 100 small meshes, which should really be just one mesh, and detecting all of that and like figuring out like, oh, this one needs to move. And oh, here we have like half of this prefab should be basically removed because there's so many game objects that's not needed in the new context. Like you can't change all of that 95 enemies by hand and removing all of those game objects by hand. You need to just find a way to do it in bulk, so everything just doesn't break down because you're making one error at Tuesday afternoon when you didn't have your coffee. That's the actual problem that you're trying to solve. Like, how do I do this in a predictable manner?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think we've all definitely been guilty of doing a repetitive task manually and then like forgetting to set one thing, and it can be something very difficult to track down because it's just like, looking for a needle in a haystack almost. I think I can't hear you. It shows you're muted on. Oh, it's doing this thing again where it says your mic isn't connected.
Do you know? Hello?
Oh, wait, yeah, we got you.
Yeah, the mic. I have some iffiness in the wire, but yeah. As you said, I was gonna say something. What were
Finding
you
a needle in a haystack of that
Yeah.
one screw up.
and also like reverse finding a needle in the haystack, finding when you didn't expect one. That's also like that happened so many times. It's like, oh, I talked with one of the developers, and I'm like, so I'm thinking about doing this thing, but that depends on that we don't have any asset that looks like this. If they look like this, they need special treatment, and my automatic tool will just like bulldoze over that and destroy it. So do you have anything that looks like that? And in the beginning I was like, I just asked them and they're gonna tell me. And I broke so many things because they, for quite reasonable reasons, they didn't know they had a bunch of them because a big project. So like, oh, there was a needle in the haystack, god damn it, it punctured my my tire or whatever. So then now all the things I've done, I've just first written like a filtering thing to frame like, am I looking at the right problem, or is it more problems inside of this haystack? Like, no, okay, that's the print only prints boolean. Like, am I looking at a clean haystack, or is there some needles I'm going to find when I try to convert this? That's also a big deal because even if you think you don't have any weird anomalies, you probably have, because a project evolves and changes so much during. So you have things you did 3 years ago that's still in the game and not legacy, but when you look at it, like, oh damn, we did it that way. Oh, that was a weird time, but it worked for 3 years, so
yeah.
who cares? Nobody looked so much at it. So yeah. And that
The guy that left the project 6 months ago did that.
yes
Sounds about right.
Left a logical bomb to be found.
No, but I think that's kind of why like that kind of logging step that you were doing in your tools is kind of important to, again, just give you more insight into your project, because I'm sure just even doing like a simple little logging thing like that can give you a lot more insight into the kind of makeup of the assets in your project.
Yeah, I had when we were trying to figure out that Pro Builder was messing up the performance in the editor, I was like asking like, oh, what is the object prefab that has the most Pro Builder objects inside of it? And the designer was like, oh, it's probably this one. And like looked at it, yeah, it's probably that. And then I was like, I want to actually rank
like,
them.
yeah, let's yeah.
So I made a little thing to just like rank the amount of objects that can. And
okay.
And then like the one that he showed, I think had like, I don't know, 105 meshes or something like that inside of it. And the one I found have 1,500. And then I'm like, dude, did you forget about this
You remember
one?
this one?
And he's like, oh, that's still in the project.
There you go. There's the unknown needle in the haystack.
Yeah, that wasn't a used asset, so that happens. But
yeah,
still, the one he said was like eighth in the
yeah.
list
I was gonna
something.
ask. Yeah, was it
it
not
wasn't
even like
It had like
top
three
five?
three used assets that had a different, like more than twice as much.
Wow.
But like he was eighth in the rank, I think, out of like 500 assets. So he was pretty good at guess.
Okay,
anyway.
okay. That's still like top.
Yeah.
That's almost top 1%, right?
Yeah, so that was completely reasonable. But when I asked him, and then afterwards, I realized, well, I should really just check. It's like 2 minutes to write some code to just rank them. Yeah. And then I'm like, oh, okay, 1,500. right. That was like a arena built out of bricks. Every brick was an individual Pro Builder mesh.
Oh yeah. I remember you kind of saying that.
That doesn't scale, my children. Don't do that.
That's not 01.
No.
1.
That's oh too much, I think.
Oh, too much. Oh, too much.
Yes, 1500. Yeah. So yeah.
No, yeah,
Uh,
even just kind of from like a stat nerd perspective, kind of doing those things is fun. Like just like ranking things and say like, oh, interesting. Like that's kind of the these are the top 10,
yeah.
things like
Very informative. Yeah, I'm actually like, you know what? Just I need to show this quickly. Here, if I look at so we have this thing here. So have all of the shanty things, right?
okay.
We can actually remove that part and and now we have all of 400 and sort. So child ascending. Yeah, that's the. So if we do that, then look, then arena room builder. You can open that one. No, you got to be the other way around. I'm stupid. Oh yeah, we removed actually the one that's completely deleted from the object from the game. But like when you go into this one, you're like, this is basically the tutorial level, and then you go in here and you like, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a big boy.
I'd say.
Yeah. So I don't know how many of these are. These are there are no pro builder left in this one. You know, all of them are like, this is from PB. You can see
Okay.
if I mark that, that means from pro builder.
Right.
If I look at that, you can see here saved PB meshes. This is the things that I've been generating. This is all automatically. And yeah, you can see it's just 1,000.
Yeah, I mean
small.
that's like borderline impossible for you to do manually.
Yeah, this is this is just, you can't do it. You can see it's just like random shapes, and everything is mapped into a specific map that uses them. That is like handcrafted by the designer. So yeah, all of this. I haven't actually looked like what are we talking about here. 200 megabytes, 18,000 files.
18,000 files.
Well, 9,000, I guess, because it's a meta file.
Meta files, yeah.
Yeah. But so that's a few. That's
It's a couple meshes.
Yes. So
couple meshes that you saved.
But you can see here the sorting that I put in. It's like sorting on name and then load save. So I can let's see here, load save. So I can just save it to a text file if I need to
okay.
like reference to it, or send the
That's
designer
helpful
like
too.
Yeah,
Keeping a record of where things are at, so you can kind of have hard proof of the improvements that you're making.
Yeah, and then also select random, select alt, select first, remove first, so you can like go through them. This one is a baddie to press. That should I should not press that right now, because it will just freeze my computer and I will probably crash. But if you're doing this and you're selecting all, then you can sort of get them. You can see here 44 selected, and you can see so this is just manipulation in editor code. So all of these are just editor codes.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
it's fun stuff.
Very fun. It's actually very, very fun to work with. It's just sometimes annoying to deal with when it's like really, really complicated and like in its own butt situations where with the prefabs.
So here's the question of the day: do you use mesh colliders for all that?
I wouldn't say me. I would say there is mesh colliders. There isn't really much I can do about it now. Honestly, it's not that bad. I am surprised how well physics is managing all the mesh colliders. Like a lot of the maps are not like it's not reasonable to do them without mesh colliders. So they need to have mesh colliders. But there's an excessive amount of mesh colliders for sure, and that's known by the people who have made all of it. So that's a lesson for the future. But yeah, there's like almost all of those from ProBuilder generated things are mesh colliders in the world where they are used. So yeah, it's crazy. But with my performance fixes that's coming out in a few weeks, I think I'm gonna hit like just what you expect from the game. Smooth, 144 FPS on a modern computer if you want that, and it's gonna be fine. And that's with a billion mesh colliders. So I guess physics is stretching
It
muscles.
can still do a thing or two.
Yeah. Mesh collider matters when you need higher quality collision, but there are definitely optimizations to be had learning from box collider. Yeah, and like people to just think like box colliders, you cannot be inside of a box collider. Like that's not a valid position. Like, but a mesh collider made into a box, you can be inside of that one. So that's like distinct. That's if you make out of mesh colliders, then everything needs, unless you can have a convex mesh collider and it will treat the same. But just fundamentally, mesh colliders will just be treated as a different thing. Triggers you can be inside. Yeah, you can trigger. I had a lot of issues with the mesh collider to mesh collider collision. That I can tell. Yeah. Danny, welcome.
Woo!
Do you have the Danny
Oh,
sound? Yeah. Somebody is getting a little bit anxious to go out. Oh, Felix, we're gonna go out soon. Don't worry.
Out for his midnight walk.
Yeah. My other half is on call for veterinary stuff, so
Right.
I need to take care of the peeing afterwards. All right, Felix. Evietta. That's go to your bed in Latvian.
That was very impressive.
Could you use an AABB calculator box collider replacement using the tool? Yeah, I actually made a little bit more advanced version of that, where I made something I think it's called like primitives collision replacement. So I'm like I did some math to like see like does this mesh collider match a primitive with some stretching, and I managed it to swap out a bunch of test examples I tried, but then I just like paused, and this is also good learning. Like I paused, like, all right, let's just take a look. What's the difference? So I set up a situation where I just swapped everything out between mesh colliders versus box colliders, and it wasn't that big of a difference. So I'm like, nah, this is not worth my time. So I just like, screw it. Mesh collider is going to be, let's move on. So, but replacing with better performance stuff, that's super good use case for this kind of tools. Like finding a way to do it in a better way, and then just like trying to figure out how to replace it efficiently. Yeah.
Sweet.
All right.
Sounds good to me. Well, yeah, let's go ahead and we can kind of start closing things out here. So we'll go into our dynamic allocation portion of the show, where we have some fun things that we want to share with the community. So do you have anything that's you have here that you want to share with the people today?
Yeah, I actually, this was just a random X or Twitter or whatever account. Maybe I can post it just here like that. I can maybe show my computer screen for that one. Let's see here. Well, I guess this could be potentially finding something weird because it's a random Twitter account. But this is some dude who just have a habit of posting stuff that he calls like he usually tags them as like VFX ref.
Okay.
So it's like now I can't find any. He posts a lot on Twitter apparently. There, like just things that looks cool, and you're like, that could be a reference for
Is that
something
like
I
a
want to put
bat
in.
walking on a
Yes,
treadmill?
yes.
Cool.
And then and this one. I don't know what it is. It looks cool. I'm glad I
Got some
saw it.
smoke vortex black hole type thing. Wow.
Yeah.
So it's just
And,
kind of a lot of like, yeah, like you're saying, cool stuff that could be used as like if you're trying to recreate an effect, use it as a reference. Like if you like, yeah, making a rocket ship, you like want to have some good reference material for the jet engine and
this is
whatever.
probably some AI or backwards playing stuff. I think it might be backward. I don't know, but it's really strange. But yeah, he just have a habit of posting very, very strange things. That's fun to look at. This is probably not one of those. Yeah, I don't know. That's also like, I don't know what it is really, but it looks cool. It's inspiring.
Yeah.
So I was just, I didn't have any link when we started. I was just like scrambling my head. What? Oh, that dude I found on Twitter. I should just share that. So yeah, that's my random allocation.
Cool. Sounds good to me. Well, I'm going to go ahead and share Bonfire because we have Scott in the chat. This is the project that's been created by his company Dimension X. I'll go ahead and start playing the little video here. So it's available right now in Steam Early Access. It's basically a like game creation tool, but you can create more types of simulations and other things like that with it. But it's all kind of drag and drop interface, and yeah, so you can add logic and different functionality to whatever objects are in your game. Could be a great way to prototype something out or just kind of make some fun little game for your friends to play. I know they've been working on it for a little while, and yeah, it recently entered early access. So yeah, very exciting. So yeah, go download Bonfire for free, play around with it. I'm pretty sure it ships with like a bunch of assets by default, so you can just kind of start dragging and dropping things right away. But yeah, shout out to Bonfire and Dimension X. Shout out Scott Robertson.
Nice stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, yeah. So I think that is about it for our show here today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. And oh yeah. So it does include some assets in Bonfire. And yeah, so all runtime, no unit required. It has its own scripting language. Yeah, so it's just you can download, play around with it, and yeah, you don't need to have Unity or anything separately installed in there. But yeah, with that, we can close things out here today. Yeah, thanks for joining us, everybody. I do just real quickly want to remind you that you can support us over on Patreon as well as through YouTube memberships if you do want to get access to some of the bonus content that we post over there. And real quick, I just do want to give a shout out to the supporters at the CPU register tier. So thank you very much to eCool for your support over there. It is greatly appreciated. So yeah, with that, that's going to do it for episode 41 of the Hot Path Show. Tobias, you got any closing words of wisdom for us?
Yes. Keep on tooling.
Hey, all right. Keep on tooling. That's a great thing to go into the weekend with.
Yes. All right.
Absolutely. All right. Well, yeah, thanks again, everybody. And we'll catch you next week for a new episode of the Hot Path Show. See you, everybody.
All right.